Ukraine's military has reported bloody battles unprecedented in recent decades. In the eastern city of Bakhmut as the death toll from a Russian attack on residential buildings in nearby Sloviansk climbed to 11. The reported battles on Saturday came as the Russian Defense Ministry said fighters from its Wagner mercenary group had captured 2 more areas of Bakhmut. Wagner has spearheaded Russia's attempt to take the city, the main target of Russia's offensive in eastern Ukraine, since last summer. The fight has been the longest and deadliest battle of the war for both sides. Bloody battles unprecedented in recent decades are taking place in the middle of the city's urban area, said Serhiy Cherevati, spokesperson for Ukraine's Eastern Military Command. Our soldiers are doing everything in bloody and fierce battles to grind down the enemy's combat capability and break its morale, he told the ONEPost television channel. Every day, in every corner of this city, they are successfully doing so. Russia meanwhile claimed advances in Bakhmut. Wagner assault units have successfully advanced, capturing 2 districts on the northern and southern outskirts of the city, Russia's defense ministry said in a briefing. It added that Russian army paratroop units were supporting the claimed advance by holding back Ukrainian forces on the flanks. The United Kingdom said in an intelligence update on Friday that Ukrainian troops had been forced to cede some territory in Bakhmut as Russia mounted a renewed assault there, with intense artillery fire over the previous 2 days. Indescribable grief. In nearby Sloviansk, which lies about 45 kilometers (27 miles) to the northwest, Ukrainian officials said rescue teams had recovered the bodies of 2 more people from under the rubble of a house hit in a Russian missiles attack, raising the toll there to 11. According to Ukrainian officials, 7 Russian missiles hit 5 buildings, 5 homes and an administrative building in the attack on Friday. A previous toll reported 9 dead, including a 2-year-old boy who was rescued from the rubble but died on his way to the hospital, and 21 wounded. Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska sent her condolences to the child's family during this indescribable grief. President Volodymyr Zelensky denounced Russia for brutally shelling residential buildings and killing people in broad daylight. Ukrainian officials said rescuers in Sloviansk were continuing the search for 5 people who remained in the wreckage of the apartment building, as well as the residents of 3 units who were reported missing. Ukraine's Air Force meanwhile said the country would soon have weapons with which to try to prevent attacks like the one on Friday. The delivery of the Patriot air defense system promised by the United States was expected in Ukraine sometime after Easter, Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Inat said. The primarily Orthodox Christian country is preparing to observe Easter on Sunday. Speaking on Ukrainian state TV, Inat declined to give a precise timeline for the arrival of the defensive missile system but said the public would know as soon as the first Russian aircraft is shot down. Germany and the Netherlands also have pledged to provide a Patriot system each to Ukraine. In addition, a SAMP-T anti-missile system pledged by France and Italy should enter Ukraine in the near future, according to Inat. On the diplomatic front, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said on Saturday that the U.S. should stop encouraging war in Ukraine, as he wrapped a state visit to China. He also urged the European Union to start talking about peace. Zelensky has said he will not negotiate with Russia as long as President Vladimir Putin is in power, and on Saturday, he reiterated Ukraine's desire to join NATO as soon as possible. Kyiv would need effective security guarantees before that happened, he said, but gave no details. Russia had said this month that it wants any peace talks on Ukraine to focus on creating a new world order. Moscow has long said it was leading a struggle against Washington's dominance over the international stage and argues the Ukraine offensive is part of that fight. Russia's commando units gutted by Ukraine war, U.S. leak shows. The war in Ukraine has gutted Russia's clandestine Spetsnaz forces, and it will take Moscow years to rebuild them, according to classified U.S. assessments obtained by the Washington Post. The finding, which has not been previously reported, is among a cache of sensitive materials leaked online through the messaging platform Discord. U.S. officials attributed their assessments to Russian commanders' over-reliance on the specialized units, which have been put to use as part of frontline infantry formations. Those formations, like the Ukrainians, have suffered massive numbers of dead and wounded. Typically, Spetsnaz personnel are assigned the sorts of stealthy, high-risk missions, including an apparent order to capture Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, for which they receive some of the Russian military's most advanced training. But when Moscow launched its full-scale invasion last year, senior commanders eager to seize momentum and skeptical of their conventional fighters' prowess deviated from the norm, ordering elite forces into direct combat, according to U.S. intelligence findings and independent analysts who have closely followed Spetsnaz deployments. The rapid depletion of Russia's commando units, observers say, shifted the war's dynamic from the outset, severely limiting Moscow's ability to employ clandestine tactics in support of conventional combat operations. U.S. officials believe that the staggering casualties these units have sustained will render them less effective, not only in Ukraine but also in other parts of the world where Russian forces operate, according to the assessments, which range in date from late 2022 to earlier this year. The hollowing of these units appears to be evident in satellite imagery featured among the leaked materials. Before and after photos, showing a base used by the 22nd Separate Spetsnaz Brigade in southern Russia, according to the document, reveal that, all but one of 5 Russian Separate Spetsnaz brigades that returned from combat operations in Ukraine in late summer 2022 suffered significant losses. The slide includes 2 overhead images, one taken in November 2021, months before the invasion began, and another captured a year later. The former shows a bustling motor pool teeming with vehicles, the latter reveals what U.S. officials concluded is a state of extreme depletion months after the brigade's return home with fewer than half of the Tiger tactical vehicles it had before the deployment. The 22nd and 2 other Spetsnaz brigades suffered an estimated 90 to 95% attrition rate, the assessments say. Compounding Russia's problems is the loss of experience within its elite forces. Spetsnaz soldiers require at least 4 years of specialized training, the U.S. documents say, concluding that it could take as long as a decade for Moscow to reconstitute these units. The documents do not say how many Spetsnaz troops are estimated to have been killed or wounded in Ukraine, but the materials, citing intelligence intercepts, assess that one unit alone, the 346th, lost nearly the entire brigade with only 125 personnel active out of 900 deployed. U.S. intelligence analysts tracked every Spetsnaz unit that returned home to southern Russia from Ukraine, except for one, the 25th Spetsnaz Regiment. Severe personnel and equipment losses, the documents say, could explain why there is no clear intelligence signature of their return to garrison. The U.S. government assessments dovetail with analysts' observations. Rob Lee, a Russia military expert and senior fellow with the Foreign Policy Research Institute, said that because Russia's motorized rifle infantry soldiers proved ineffective, commanders have sought to compensate by pushing elite airborne units, naval infantry and Spetsnaz to the front, including in the failed bid to capture Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and for campaigns in the east and south. There was an immediate consequence to that strategy, Lee said. Russian commanders, having burned through the best-trained fighters, forfeited the valuable skills those troops possess, including intelligence gathering and reconnaissance, from the start of the invasion through last fall. That affected the rest of the war because Russia lost all these key capabilities up front that they couldn't easily replace, both equipment-wise and talent-wise, he said. That affected what they could and couldn't do. Just days into the war, Spetsnaz troops arrived in the eastern city of Kharkiv in small numbers and without much support from conventional troops, Lee said. Many of them were killed or captured, he noted. Several of their specialized vehicles were destroyed, videos and photos show. A similar situation played out in Mariupol in the south, Lee said, and in the eastern Donbass region, where fighting often took place in wooded areas where regular Russian motorized rifle units had difficulty operating. Spetsnaz forces have also operated in the coal mining town of Vuhledar in the Donetsk region, Lee said, where Ukrainian and Russian forces have battled each other for months. A soldier who served in Vuhledar with Ukraine's 72nd Mechanized Brigade told the Post that while he could not confirm his unit faced Spetsnaz, that was probably the case because they carried advanced body armor along with high-end night vision and thermal optics.